Hello Internet, this is a little bonus feature related to Monster Clash where I go over the different books and things that I was quoting throughout the different episodes. As someone pointed out in the very first episode of the 2013 run, the opening passage was from Dante's Inferno, which is the first part of the Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri. I don't have the copy with me because it belongs to my younger brother and I kind of borrowed it without his permission. I mean, I didn't take it out of the house, but it's still just a case of he was still actively reading it, and so I just borrowed it and read the first lines. And the reason why I had that was because I was initially going to open each video by reading a verse or two from each part of Dante's Inferno. At least that was the idea, to kind of symbolize a more of like a journey further and further into darkness. But really, given how hard it is to hammer out these videos, I had to abandon a lot of the initial concepts that I was going to do. I mean, I was initially going to have guests, but the schedules between myself and the prospective guests just couldn't line up. That and one of the guests ended up going to Portland. And, by the way, I'm not going to edit this. This is just a little fun thingy. And so, yeah, that was the case of the book that I read from in the Mummy video. As for the book that I opened the Wolfman video with, it's called A Field Guide to Demons, Fairies, Fallen Angels, and Other Subversive... Let's try it. Yeesh, it's a hard title to say. A Field Guide to Demons, Fairies, Fallen Angels, and Other Subversive Spirits by Carol K. Mack and Dinah Mack. It's a mother and daughter team that wrote it. I got this book from my younger brother. I think it was Christmas when I got this. And I was still in high school at the time, and so I was kind of like into researching stuff like this. And it's a pretty good book. I've read most of the way through. I'm still in like, I think the one I'm on is, wow. I'm like, this is how far I am in the book. And I had to skip ahead in order to find the passage on the werewolf. And so if you're into like more of the folkloric origins of demons, then this is a good book to check out. Even if some of the facts are a little iffy, it's still a pretty good read, especially if you're into kind of learning kind of origins, especially if you're a writer wanting to incorporate demons into your stories. I would definitely recommend this book. Now, the video that I opened the Fright Night review with, well, it's another book. This was one that I bought at a very, very huge discount when I was in high school. It was like on sale for like $4 at Barnes & Noble. And it's called The Vampire Watcher's Handbook, The Guide for Slayers by Constantine Gregory. Now, this is part of a string of books that I collected during my time in high school that it was written as if the stuff actually existed, and it was essentially like a fantasy story, except it was kind of like you could use the stuff as like reference material to kind of create your own fantasy. Not so much in the reference sense, but just kind of, it let your mind kind of wander and think, ooh yeah, this will be good information for when I raid the vampire's lair next Friday while eating Cheetos and playing Resident Evil. And so, yeah, the writing is pretty cheesy in a few places now that I look at it again. But I read this thing cover to cover numerous times when I was in high school, because I was just so fascinated. I kind of almost essentially wanted to commit the entire book to memory, which didn't quite work, but a lot of the things I remember from it, I still remember, like how to defeat them, the whole seed things. Some of the stuff used to destroy vampires, at least according to this book, are kind of dumb. But I don't know if this book's still in print. If it is, and you're looking for something that's a bit of a light read and focuses specifically on vampires and even talks about like different accounts, kind of like the Zombie Survival Guide, this is a pretty good book too. Now, for the look at the ring, I didn't actually reference any book. I literally typed in a few words into Google Translate and then proofread it a little bit based on what little knowledge of Japanese that I actually have. Because really, I was initially going to read a passage from The Quiet Dawn by Lafcadio O'Hearn, but I couldn't find any story in the book that actually matched up with the folktale that The Ring was based on. Because the folktale that The Ring was based on actually is kind of interesting, because it's basically about a woman who's serving a samurai but is kind of spurning his advances. And basically, the basic story is that there are these 10 plates that this family holds onto. They're like really important, almost kind of like the equivalent of fine china. And in order to kind of weasel his way to essentially getting the girl into bed, the samurai decides to hide one of the plates. And basically the girl is like doing her usual cleaning and counting the plates, and then she notices one is missing and starts really freaking out because these are like really important family plates, and she's just like, ah! And so later in the story, the samurai decides to try to blackmail. It's like, look, I'll let this slide if, you know. And the girl just turns him down outright. And I don't know if I'm remembering the story correctly. I don't know if it's a different version thing. But basically, from what I remember, the samurai gets mad, kills her, and chucks her down a well. And then basically her ghost haunts the samurai's home, kind of driving him insane, or at least trying to. And how the ghost is dealt with varies from story to story. Some stories don't have the ghost dealt with and just have the samurai lose his mind and end up killing himself or getting killed through the ghost's vengeance somehow. But the key underlying thing is that either from within the wall or throughout the house, you would hear the woman counting the plates, going from 1 to 9, but then when she doesn't find the 10th plate, she screams because she's so frustrated because she's still trying to find the 10th plate even after death. And so in some stories, an exorcist would be brought in, and when the woman is counting and is about to scream from not finding the 10th plate, the exorcist would then shout 10, and then kind of let the spirit rest, letting her know that someone found the 10th plate. But that was kind of the story that inspired The Ring. Unfortunately, I couldn't find any in the Kwaidan, so it's a book recommendation, but I didn't actually read anything from it. And I'm not going to tell you what I said in Japanese. That's for you to translate and get a kick out of if you know Japanese. And now for the Evil Dead video. Well, although Evil Dead doesn't deal specifically with zombies, the book I read from was called Zombie Haiku by Ryan Meckham. I don't know how the last name is pronounced, but it doesn't say in the About the Author section either. But basically, the reason why I chose this book is because it had the same sense of humor as the Evil Dead films. It was kind of in the same vein of the Zombie Survival Guide, except this one was definitely a lot more comedic. And this is also a book I really, really recommend. And I mean, base price is $10, so it's pretty cheap. And it's literally haikus written from the perspective of a zombie. Like, it starts from the outbreak before he even turns into a zombie, and then you slowly see everything kind of play out in this zombie apocalypse scenario. And so it's really fascinating as you kind of see the evolution of this guy into, well, a hungry, bloodthirsty zombie who still somehow managed to retain some semblance of intelligence. If you can suspend your disbelief of how he's able to write haikus while talking about events that are actually happening in real time, then it's definitely a good read, and it's definitely got a nice little sense of humor about itself. Just don't read it before going to bed. You will have nightmares. And I'm speaking from personal experience. And so yeah, that's pretty much the books of Monster Clash. The books that I referenced or were planning to reference that are tangentially related to what I was talking about. And yeah, that's pretty much it. And as for the games that I was holding up, I mean, I couldn't tell if you could see it clearly, but the first one is Spirit Camera, which I'm going to be playing throughout Halloween. It's the one that requires you to look at through the special cursed memoir that comes with the game, and you have to have it in the right lighting and stuff, and it's basically an altered reality game made by the people who made Fatal Frame. And the other game that I made a quick reference to was Soul Hackers. I'm still in the process of beating Soul Hackers. I bought Shin Megami Tensei 4 a while back so I could get the $30 credit, but I'm trying to beat this game before moving on to that game. And I'm probably not going to move on to Shin Megami Tensei 4 for a while, because after I beat this game, I'm going to be playing the new Phoenix Wright. So, yeah. That's just a little insight into some of the extra information that I put into the episodes of Monster Clash. If you've been watching my ramblings this entire time, well, then, yeah, thanks for watching, and, well, hope you stick around for later episodes of Romney's Reviews.